So as the Queen cancels her annual pre-Christmas lunch with the royal family due to the rise in COVID cases, many are following suit and looking to do the same in the run-up to Christmas.
Well, some people are wearing masks around the house, enforcing more social distancing measures and even locking themselves down till the big day. Well, let's take a look at Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty's official advice.
I think that what most people are doing is, and I would think this seems very sensible, is prioritising the social interactions that really matter to them, and to protect those ones, deprioritising ones that matter much less to them. And I think that's going to become increasingly important as we, for example, go into the Christmas period.
So should we limit our social contact and lock ourselves down? We're joined now by Alison Edgar, MBE, who says we can't lock down again, we have to live our lives. And late editor of the newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, who says he's already started to limit his social contact and is imposing a lockdown on himself as well. We also have Dr. Amir with us to answer any questions that you have all sent in already. Alison, let's start with you, because undoubtedly I think lots of people are sitting, thinking about this, talking with their families, saying, you know what, I want to be able to go out, I want to trust that I'm going to be safe, but Christmas is around the corner. I've got my elderly relatives coming to me for Christmas, or I'm going to them for Christmas. I don't want to jeopardise that. So I'm just going to put some restrictions on myself now rather than do that. Why do you think they shouldn't be doing that?
I mean, I think it's a personal choice, Ben. So if somebody wants to do that, then that's how they can choose to live their life. But we've gone through 2 tough years. And I think if you look at the statistics, and again, it's great that we've got the doctor in the house because he can share the medical side. But actually, the statistics and the fatalities to the number of cases is so low that actually we have to, you know, from a mental health perspective, from a socialising perspective, if we look at, you know, coming back to even things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we look, we've made our commitment that we're safe and secure, but we need to be part of a social pack. And I think that is really important that we do socialising, but be careful, you know, don't
Alison, we all want to be part of a social pack. But what happens if you get ill going out and being part of that pack, and that means that you've then got to be on your own for 10 days, which goes right across the Christmas period?
So I think that we're in a hybrid world, but lots of us were alone last Christmas. And again, if you look even at things like the Queen, like, would you expect your 95-year-old granny to host the party? No, younger people host the party and Zoom granny in, because, you know, we look at now the older generation and, you know, provide them with a meal, sit them at the table, look at them and join them through. So I think it's, you can still socialise, you can still bring family in, but we're in a hybrid world now, if you like it or not. Look at, you know, today we're coming from Wiltshire and around the world. So I think that you can actually have both interactions and keep safe and healthy. But I think going back to, you know, hands, face, space, which is what we started with 2 years ago, I think that's not a bad thing. I think the reason, again, not from a medical perspective, but a lot of people have been lax on the rules because it was quite ambiguous by the government. So I think that actually you can have the best of both worlds if you're careful. You know, we did go outside and have the bubbles outside for walks with our wellies. You know, there are things that we can actually do to have the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
OK, well, Benjamin, let's come to you, because I know you don't agree, do you? You've taken a decision to have this self-imposed lockdown, which is, you know, obviously going to be a big change of circumstance for you. Why do you feel it's important to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you'd asked me maybe a month ago, I might even have been on Alison's side. I was enjoying a normal life as safely as I could. But I think things have fundamentally changed in the last week. You know, the ups and downs of the COVID cases over the last year and a half, I haven't seen directly affect sort of my social circle. But in the last week, the number of people I know who've come down with Omicron, who've come down with COVID, is incredible. It's clear that the 88,000 cases yesterday is a fraction of what it really is. So for me, I've cancelled all of the Christmas parties I was going to, all of the meals and seeing friends that I was going to do. And that's because I want to make sure that I don't end up getting COVID now and I'm in isolation over Christmas Day, maybe over New Year, because that would be a disaster. You know, we talked about the shock of last Christmas. I think a lot of us have a trauma from the sudden changes of rules, from not being able to see family at short notice. And so for me, I think what a lot of people are doing, what I'm certainly doing, is imposing it on myself to reduce the chances that I'll get it, to make sure that I can still have those essential moments over Christmas. And, you know, I live in central London, and over the last 2 nights when I've taken late night walks in the evening around where I live, all of the pubs, all of the restaurants are closed. And so for me, I think that there needs to be protection for those restaurants and businesses, because the situation now is that millions of us have done what I've done and self-imposed a lockdown to stay safe. And the only problem with that is that I feel so much for the businesses that are damaged.
Because essentially it's a lockdown by stealth, isn't it, in that case? Because the advice has been put out there and then people are taking it on board and thinking that they'll keep themselves at home like you are. Do you think then that the restrictions should be made official, that everybody should be doing as you do, or do you think it should still be left up to people to be able to make their own minds about the risks?
Look, I think that lockdown restrictions that close hospitality venues, so restaurants, bars, pubs, would actually make a lot of sense, because, you know, some people might recoil in horror at the idea of that, but the fact is that they're almost empty anyway. And so you've got a situation now where millions of people are staying home because they don't want to be in isolation and completely alone, you know, locked in their room or their nan's flat over Christmas. No one wants that. And so I think the government should introduce a lockdown for hospitality and then bring back the financial support, because that would be a better situation for a lot of pubs and bars and nightclubs than simply having no customers and no financial help. And it makes us all a lot clearer about what's safe and what's not safe when you've got this crazy transmissible version of the virus at a time when people are going to hospital so much more.
OK, let's speak to Dr Amir then. So from your perspective, Amir, have you changed your plans? You're the doctor in the house. You understand this from a much clearer medical perspective than all of us. You know only too well the number of patients that are clearly coming to you that you will see with rising cases of Omicron or COVID.
Yeah, there's certainly a rise in cases of Omicron that I'm seeing, both at my surgery, but also in the red hubs that I work at, where we assess COVID patients. There's a definite rise. London, in particular, has seen a huge rise. London has a larger unvaccinated population than the rest of the UK. I think Alice's point, you know, talking about hospital admissions, there's always a lag between these huge rise in cases and hospital admissions. So we may well see that in the weeks to come. South Africa are seeing that now. But any kind of the exponential growth rate of this virus, the rate at which it doubles, offsets any reduced severity that people do talk about. And it's not just about hospital admissions. We've got to think about people who will get Omicron, may not end up in hospital, but end up with long-term symptoms, long COVID. And I think they're being forgotten about in this discussion. It's all about, well, hospital admissions aren't going up, but long COVID has very devastating consequences for a lot of people and their families. And we're not talking about cancelling Christmas. We're talking about reducing social activities in the run-up to Christmas. And I don't think it's fair to have grandma or granddad on Zoom. I think, you know, they've suffered as much as anyone else during this whole pandemic. And it's about a family Christmas if we can get them there. And yet boosters important. But everything else in the run-up to Christmas is very important as well.
It's really interesting. A lot of people getting in touch to talk about their Christmas plans. Gemma on Twitter, why should we stop everything again? The majority of us are out there, double jabbed and boosted. We know the information. Let people make their own choice. Jenny says, I'm going to a pantomime on Saturday. I'm having a birthday party for my twins on Sunday. Spending time with the family in restaurants next week. Living says, my life.
I've cancelled all my gin sessions in the run-up to Christmas. Things must be serious, Helen.
Goodness.
I've decided, though, to get walking on Dartmoor instead. I'm cooking for all my family and elderly parents. Just have to work extra hard at the gym after Christmas for my wedding in May, and maybe one less mince pie. And, of course, Helen and lots of people have half an eye on what they've got planned for next year and hoping that weddings and birthdays and parties and gatherings in the new year don't get cancelled. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Alison, Benjamin. And, of course, Dr Amir will have you back throughout this morning's programme as well. Do keep those messages coming in.